Mr. Duze is interested in buying a piece of land. The property will be used for agricultural purposes. When buying a property, transfer duties apply. Table 8 shows the transfer duty rates for the latest financial year. Now, the first column lists the brackets for each range of property value. The second column lists the range of values for the property in rands, and the third column lists the rates for each bracket. Now, there is a note that states that transfer duties are fees associated with the transfer of ownership of property from the seller to the buyer. In other words, transfer duties are taxes paid to the government by the buyer when the property changes ownership from the seller to the buyer, and it's calculated on the value of the property. We have to use the information in Table 8 to answer the questions that follow. In question 511, you have to identify the rate at which the transfer duties will be calculated if a person buys a house that costs 1.8 million rand. For a house that costs 1.8 million rand, the value of the property will fall into the range of 1,512,501 rand to 2,117,500 rand. So the rate for this bracket will be 12,375 rand plus 6% of the value above 1,512,500 rand. In question 512, you have to calculate the transfer duty that Mr. Duze will pay on his agricultural land if the selling price of the land is 2,850,000 rand. Now, 2,850,000 rand falls into the fifth bracket. The rate for this bracket is 97,075 rand plus 11% of the value above 2,722,500 rand. To calculate the transfer duty, we use the following equation. 97,075 rand plus 11 over 100 multiplied by the difference of 2,850,000 rand and 2,722,500 rand. This equals a transfer duty of 111,100 rand. In question 513, you have to name one factor besides the cost of the property and the transfer duty that Mr. Duze should take into consideration when deciding on buying a property for farming. Another consideration on deciding to buy a property for farming could be the availability of water on the property, because farming requires a lot of water. Question 5.2 states that Mr. Duze decides to also study the crime statistics before buying the piece of land. He finds the following crime statistics for 2021-2022 represented in this graph. The stats consist of two horizontal bar graphs. The first graph shows the percentage of house break-ins, while the second graph shows the number of house break-ins in each of the 9 provinces in South Africa. There is a note that states that the percentage of house break-ins represents the part of the provincial population that experience a house break-in. The statement means that 6% of the population of the Northern Cape experienced a house break-in from 2021 to 2022. You have to use the information in the graph to answer the following questions. In question 521, you have to calculate the median number of break-ins. To calculate the median of a dataset, we first have to arrange the data in ascending order. By observation, we can see that the data for the number of house break-ins are already arranged in ascending order. That is, from the smallest value to the largest value. Now, the median is a measure of central tendency. It is the value that divides the dataset into two equal groups of values. We know that there are 9 provinces in South Africa, so the fifth value in the dataset will be the median. This is because the fifth value divides the dataset into two groups of 4 values. The median for the number of house break-ins will then be 102,000. In question 522, you have to calculate the range in the number of house break-ins. The range is a measure of spread and it's calculated by finding the difference between the largest value in the dataset and the smallest value in the dataset. Now, the largest value in the number of house break-ins is 255,000. And the smallest value from the number of house break-ins is 21,000. The difference between these two values is 234,000. In question 523, you have to calculate the total number of households in the Northern Cape. Now remember the note that stated that the percentage of house break-ins represents the part of the provincial population that experience a house break-in. This means that 6% of the population of the Northern Cape experienced a house break-in. Now if 6% represents the part of the population that experienced a house break-in in the Northern Cape, then 100% represents the total population of the entire Northern Cape. Now we also know from the data that there were 21,000 house break-ins in the Northern Cape. This represents the 6% of the population that experienced a house break-in in the Northern Cape. Now we are asked to calculate the total number of households in the Northern Cape. As a percentage, the total number of households in the Northern Cape can be considered to be 100%. And we know that 6% of the households experience a break-in and 6% as a number equals 21,000. Now we can calculate the total number of households in the Northern Cape using the following equation. 21,000 multiplied by 100 divided by 6. This equals 350,000 households. In question 524, Mr. Duze's cousin stated that more than 4 provinces had a percentage of house break-ins above the provincial average percentage. You have to verify showing all calculations whether the statement is valid. Now the first step to solving this problem is to calculate the provincial average percentage. The average, also known as the mean, is a measure of central tendency. It is calculated by finding the sum of the values in a dataset divided by the number of values in that dataset. This will then be the sum of the percentages of all the provinces divided by the number of provinces in South Africa of 9. This will give us an average of 5.6%. Now there are 5 provinces in South Africa that had a percentage of house break-ins above the provincial average percentage. And Mr. Duze's cousin stated that more than 4 provinces had a percentage of house break-ins above the provincial average. This means that the statement is valid. In question 525, Mr. Duze stated that the Western Cape is safer than Gauteng as there were less reported cases of house break-ins. You have to critically comment on the statement by referring to all relevant information. Now if we analyze the data, we see that there are 204,000 house break-ins in Gauteng versus 160,000 house break-ins in the Western Cape. Yes, there are more house break-ins in Gauteng compared to the Western Cape, but there is a higher probability of a house break-in in the Western Cape compared to Gauteng. We can see it here by comparing the percentage of house break-ins. There is a 5.8% chance of a house break-in in the Western Cape compared to a house break-in of 3.7% in Gauteng. That's a 2.1% greater chance of a house break-in in the Western Cape compared to Gauteng. Therefore, we have to comment that the Western Cape has a higher probability of a house break-in compared to Gauteng because of the higher percentage of households affected by break-ins. Question 5.3 states that after looking at the crime statistics, Mr. Duze is considering installing electric fencing around his property. According to his municipality website, electricity usage is calculated as indicated in Table 9. Now the first column of the table lists the block and a range of kilowatts purchased per calendar month, and the second column lists the rate of charge in cents per kilowatt hour. Now there is a note that states that electricity in Tshwane is calculated on a fixed rate according to the block that the usage fall into. We have to use the information in Table 9 to answer the following questions. Mr. Duze's neighbor told him that after he installed electric fencing, his average monthly electricity usage increased from 600 kilowatt hours to 900 kilowatt hours. You have to use the tariff table to calculate the potential increase in rands in the cost of his electricity bill if he installs electric fencing. The first step is to calculate the cost of 600 kilowatt hours of electricity, then the cost of 900 kilowatt hours of electricity. Then we have to find the difference between these two costs. In the table we see that 600 kilowatt hours of electricity falls into block 3. This means that the rate equals 267.38 cents per kilowatt hours of electricity used. So the cost of electricity will be 600 kilowatt hours multiplied by 267.38 cents per kilowatt, and this equals 160,428 cents. The next step is to calculate the cost of 900 kilowatt hours of electricity. 900 kilowatt hours of electricity falls into block 4. This means that the rate equals 288.24 cents per kilowatt hour of electricity used. The cost of electricity will be 900 kilowatt hours multiplied by 288.24 cents per kilowatt hour, and this equals 259,416 cents. Now finding the difference between these two costs will give us a difference of 98,988 cents. We are not done yet. We still have to convert this cost to rands. Since there are 100 cents in 1 rand, 98,988 cents equals 98,988 divided by 100, and this equals 989 rand 88 cents.